Victor Corvallis, the self-made king of Miami real estate, taught his daughter Lena one thing. In this city, success is a weapon you never let go of, not even for family. But in his glass-walled penthouse high above Miami, the man who built his empire on moral supremacy would be silenced, his skull fractured and the truth exposed, not by a bullet or a knife, but by the cold, heavy crystal of his Entrepreneur of the Year award, its razor-sharp edges driven deep by the very blood he spent a lifetime trying to control. A quick reminder, if you're drawn into the darkness of true crime, make sure you hit the subscribe button and join our channel membership. It helps us uncover more twisted stories like this. But let's go back to where it all began. The call logged at 4:17 a.m. was dispatched as a domestic disturbance, possible injury. By 4:35 a.m., the designation was upgraded to homicide. The Corvallis penthouse, situated on the 60th floor overlooking Biscayne Bay, was a scene of clinical carnage. Victor Corvallis, 52, successful developer and prominent conservative figure, was dead in his home office. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the cranium, inflicted repeatedly. The murder weapon, confirmed by initial forensic analysis, was a heavy glass award pedestal, the South Florida Entrepreneur of the Year trophy. The crystal was fractured into multiple pieces, with several sharp shards located in and around the victim's head wound. The office environment, expensive mahogany, abstract art, and automated lighting, provided a stark, unsettling contrast to the violence. Blood spatter was localized and heavy, primarily coating the area immediately surrounding the body and the lower half of the adjacent wall. This suggested a targeted, close-range attack. Lena Corvallis, 23, was located in the kitchen. She was the sole witness and the individual who placed the emergency call. Her physical presentation was key. She was wearing a silk sleepwear set, untouched by struggle, but her hands were entirely saturated with blood, not smeared, but ingrained into the skin folds. She offered minimal resistance and zero emotion. When Detective Elena Martinez arrived, the primary investigator on the scene, she bypassed the uniformed officers surrounding the perimeter and focused only on Lena. The young woman did not cry, nor did she request legal counsel. Her statement was simple, cryptic, and immediately suspicious. He saw. Martinez's initial profile assessment of the victim, Victor Corvallis, was straightforward. High net worth, high visibility, and an aggressively crafted public persona centered on family values and fiscal austerity. He was a known political donor, famous for his stringent moral pronouncements in local media. This public image was now physically negated by the trauma unit tape surrounding his body. Initial canvassing of staff and security logs confirmed only Victor and Lena were present in the residence during the timeline of the murder. There were no signs of forced entry, no alarms triggered, and the sophisticated security system was fully functional, pointing to a crime committed by a resident. The detective authorized an immediate search warrant. In Victor's custom desk, investigators located a thick file secured with a combination lock. Inside, a series of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, dated over the last 3 years, all referencing an individual named Samira Vance. Vance was a private practice therapist registered in Broward County, whose physical description in the associated surveillance reports detailed her as a transgender woman. The agreements, combined with large, consistent payoff checks, established a clear pattern of secrecy and financial control maintained by Victor Corvallis regarding this relationship. The man who publicly condemned what he termed deviant lifestyles was privately sustaining one and aggressively paying to silence any potential disclosure. This discovery immediately provided Martinez with a concrete motive: hypocrisy and blackmail. Lena's cryptic whisper, "he saw," began to take on a sharper meaning. Did Victor see his double life exposed, or did Lena see the raw, destructive truth of her father? The escalating tension between the conservative family fortress and the corrosive secret within had peaked. Martinez ordered Lena Corvallis to be transported to the station for formal interrogation, noting the deep, almost palpable exhaustion in the young woman's posture. The crime scene was not about robbery. It was about ownership and control, a war fought over a single, devastating secret, and the crystalline symbol of Victor's carefully constructed lie was the only weapon that proved strong enough to end it. The investigation now shifted from determining who did it to determining why the daughter of a powerful man was driven to use his greatest public achievement as a tool of final, fatal rebellion. Detective Martinez watched Lena Corvallis across the sterile interrogation table. The room was cold, the silence heavier than the humid Miami air outside. Lena's blood-stained nightgown had been replaced with standard-issue detainee clothing, but her expression, that same mask of distant exhaustion, remained. Martinez didn't start with the murder weapon or the blood. She started with the foundation Victor Corvallis had shattered. "We know about your mother, Lena," Martinez stated, her voice flat, devoid of judgment. "We know she left you. We know Victor Corvallis ensured she disappeared. Not physically, but legally and financially." Lena's rigid composure cracked, her first reaction since the arrest. Her eyes dropped to the steel table. "He made her choose. He told her if she took me, he would ruin her family's entire import business back in India. He said he'd make sure she could never come back to the States. He gave her a check and a one-way ticket and told her to call it an abandonment." The words were delivered rapidly, a rehearsed history that had clearly haunted her for years. The detective now had crucial context for the family structure. Victor was not just a stern father. He was a financial predator who used his power to eliminate perceived threats, even his own wife, to maintain control over his daughter and his narrative. Martinez steered the conversation to the hours before the murder. Lena admitted to an escalating argument. It began when she accessed Victor's encrypted files, the very files containing the NDAs and payoff receipts to Samira Vance. Lena had discovered the extent of her father's hypocrisy. The man funding moral crusades was secretly paying a transgender woman to keep his relationship private. The confrontation was explosive, occurring just after 3 a.m. Lena accused him of ruining their family for his lies, for forcing her mother out, and now for risking everything for a secret lover he despised enough to pay off. "He didn't deny Samira," Lena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous monotone. "He just smiled. He said she was necessary leverage. He said he was going to clean up his mess. All of it. He looked me straight in the eye and said he would eliminate both of us if I ever spoke her name in public." This shift, from hypocrisy to a direct threat of violence, was the critical point Martinez needed. According to Lena, Victor then moved to his safe. He retrieved a weapon. Lena did not specify the exact model, but confirmed it was a handgun. Victor pointed the weapon at his daughter, not to scare her, but with clear intent. Lena saw her life, and perhaps Samira's, ending right there. The nearest object, the gleaming symbol of her father's success that sat on the corner of the desk, was the Entrepreneur of the Year trophy. She grabbed it. The first swing was defensive, a desperate, reflexive act to block the perceived gunshot. The following blows, as indicated by the fractured skull and scattered crystal, were the culmination of years of subjugation, fear, and absolute rage. As this dramatic statement unfolded, a parallel investigation track had been activated, locating Samira Vance. Intelligence reports confirmed Vance was not at her registered therapy office or her apartment. Victor's recently accessed burner phone contained several cryptic messages sent in the 24 hours leading up to his death. The last message, timestamped 2:15 a.m., just before the deadly confrontation, was a clear directive to Vance. "End this. Disappear, or I will bury everything you are." Victor had been preparing to finalize his cleanup. Samira Vance was now not just a secret lover. She was a witness to Victor's threats and possibly a second intended victim. Detective Martinez immediately issued a nationwide alert for Samira Vance, recognizing that the person who held the full truth about Victor Corvallis's dark world might now be running for her life. The clock was ticking. The manhunt for Samira Vance intensified, shifting the focus from Lena Corvallis's calculated rage to Victor Corvallis's terrifying reach. Detective Martinez ordered a deep sweep of Vance's digital footprint, which quickly hit a series of sophisticated, expensive firewalls. Victor hadn't just paid for Samira's silence. He had engineered her digital disappearance. Every public record, every social media trace, and every professional credential linked to Samira Vance was either deleted or obscured by private corporate entities traced back to Victor's development group. Samira Vance was a ghost in the system, exactly as Victor had intended. Martinez authorized a physical search of Vance's registered address in Broward. The apartment was immaculate, sterile, and clearly vacated on short notice. It was a holding pattern, not a home. However, inside a single, loose floorboard, investigators recovered a heavily encrypted laptop and a small, leather-bound journal. The journal was the breakthrough. It detailed the timeline of the relationship. Victor had pursued Samira aggressively 3 years prior, drawn to the danger and control the secret provided. The entries painted a picture of Victor Corvallis not as a lover, but as a proprietor. He controlled Samira's finances, dictated where she could live, and manage her appointments. The paranoia was mutual. Samira wrote extensively about her fear that if she ever ended the relationship, Victor would not only expose her to the conservative circles he frequented, but would also actively seek to destroy her professional license and reputation. This obsession with control was directly linked back to Lena's past. A cross-reference of Victor's older financial records, prompted by Lena's interrogation, revealed a chilling parallel to her mother's forced departure. 10 years earlier, when Lena was 13, her mother, Anjali, had signed an NDA identical in structure to the ones Victor used for Samira. The terms were specific. Anjali was paid a significant lump sum to waive all parental rights and agree to never contact Lena again, citing irreconcilable moral and cultural incompatibility. The money was contingent on her remaining outside the continental U.S. Victor hadn't just threatened to ruin her. He executed a precise, legal severance. The pattern was clear. Victor Corvallis eliminated any human element that compromised his personal brand or his singular control over Lena. The journal's final entry, written just hours before Victor's murder, was a terrified reaction to his text message. "End this. Disappear, or I will bury everything you are." Samira had clearly been running. Martinez now understood the full, desperate calculus in that Biscayne Bay penthouse. Lena did not just act to protect herself. She acted to sever the one constant mechanism of destruction in her life. She saw Samira Vance as a mirror, a person about to be erased from existence by the same powerful, manipulative hands that had erased her own mother a decade prior. Martinez reviewed Lena's initial statement one more time. He saw. The detective leaned in on the interrogation tape, now convinced the phrase wasn't about Victor seeing the weapon or the truth. It was about Victor, in that final, terrifying moment, seeing the raw, total defeat in Lena's eyes, the moment he realized his decade-long campaign of control had failed. The Crystal Trophy had not just ended a life. It had broken a chain of psychological terror. The next step was clear: find Samira Vance. She was the only person alive who could confirm Victor's final threats and fully substantiate Lena Corvallis's desperate claim of self-defense. They needed to find her before Victor's extensive network of lawyers and fixers found her first. The nationwide alert for Samira Vance paid off 48 hours later. She was apprehended in a remote roadside motel outside of Jacksonville, utilizing cash and a forged ID. She offered no resistance, exhibiting the same profound, exhausted terror Lena Corvallis had displayed. Detective Martinez immediately flew north, knowing this interview would either solidify the self-defense claim or expose a deeper, calculated conspiracy. The interrogation was meticulous. Samira Vance confirmed every detail in her journal: the 3-year relationship, Victor Corvallis's obsessive need for control, the explicit NDAs, and the consistent, devastating financial leverage he maintained over her life and professional status. Victor's control was absolute. He didn't just pay her to stay silent. He used her existence as a weapon against his own morality. He often told her, "You are my dirty little secret, Samira. Without me, you are just dirt." The critical moment was the night of the murder. Samira confirmed receiving Victor's chilling final message at 2:15 a.m. "End this. Disappear, or I will bury everything you are." She had been in absolute panic, packing essentials and deleting her last remaining digital backups. When asked about Victor's capabilities, Samira was unambiguous. "He meant it. He had a file on me. Every single appointment, every legal document related to my transition. He told me he'd have my therapist's license revoked, and would expose me in the most humiliating way possible to every person who ever trusted me. Then came the new, damning detail. Samira revealed that Victor was not just planning to eliminate her from his life. He was planning to use her downfall to enhance his public image. 2 weeks prior, Victor had shown her a draft of an anonymous op-ed intended for a major conservative publication. The article detailed how a powerful, high-profile businessman had been ruthlessly targeted and blackmailed by a predatory opportunist attempting to destroy his family. The language was thinly veiled but undeniably about Samira. Victor's plan was to use her forced disappearance and ruin to generate public sympathy, positioning himself as a victim of moral corruption, a perfect preemptive defense against any potential leak. This revelation provided the missing piece for Detective Martinez. Victor was preparing a calculated, public crucifixion. He hadn't just threatened Lena. He was threatening to collapse the lives of 2 people, his daughter and his lover, to protect his real estate brand. Lena Corvallis had walked into the office at 3 a.m. and stumbled not just into an argument about hypocrisy, but into the final, operational phase of her father's destructive plan. When Victor grabbed the handgun, it wasn't a desperate reaction. It was the final step of the elimination protocol he had rehearsed countless times in his mind. Martinez concluded the interview, obtaining Samira's full testimony and the encrypted files detailing Victor's surveillance methods. The police now had 2 key narratives supporting Lena's self-defense claim: Samira's confirmed account of Victor's escalating threats and his detailed plan to destroy her, and Lena's earlier statement about her mother, proving Victor's long-standing, brutal history of using his power to erase people. The evidence was overwhelming, yet the challenge for the state attorney's office remained enormous. Convincing a jury that the daughter of a prominent, family values figure, who crushed her father's skull with his own success award, was acting in justifiable self-defense against a man who was already legally and morally destroying her. The case was ready for trial, but Victor Corvallis's influence, even in death, was still a major force. The state attorney's office faced immediate, unprecedented pressure. Prosecuting Lena Corvallis meant wading into the toxic legacy of Victor Corvallis, a man whose influence spanned the judiciary and the political elite. The prosecutor, desperate to maintain the law is law narrative, pursued an aggravated manslaughter charge. The defense, however, was armed with the full weight of Victor's documented psychological terror. The trial was a media spectacle. The prosecution's core argument was simple. Lena, fueled by resentment over her mother's abandonment and her father's hypocrisy, planned the attack. They showcased a murder weapon, the Fractured Entrepreneur of the Year award, as proof of premeditated fury, not panic. They claimed Lena's final blows were excessive and inconsistent with simple self-defense against a single handgun threat. But the defense systematically dismantled the victim's character. They presented Samira Vance, whose testimony was devastating. Samira detailed Victor's systematic financial and psychological control, confirming his final, chilling threat to bury everything you are, a direct parallel to Lena's statement about her mother a decade earlier. Lena's defense argued that the moment Victor Corvallis pointed that gun, he was not just threatening her life. He was attempting to finalize a decade of emotional and legal destruction, making the threat existential. The turning point came when the defense introduced the files detailing Victor's plan to use Samira's ruin to enhance his public image. This evidence reframed the final confrontation. It was not a family argument. It was a desperate act of rebellion against an established, lethal pattern of manipulation. Victor Corvallis was exposed as a predator who weaponized his wealth and morality to erase people, and Lena was simply the last target in his firing line. The jury deliberation was swift. After only 5 hours, the foreperson delivered the judgment. The prosecution's claim of excessive force was nullified by the sheer weight of Victor's history. The jury accepted that Lena Corvallis, cornered and facing the imminent destruction of her own life and the life of the only person who mirrored her suffering, was acting with justifiable fear. The court returned a verdict of not guilty. Lena Corvallis walked free, an outcome that sent shockwaves through Miami's elite. She was not acquitted because the jury condoned patricide, but because they understood that Victor Corvallis's death was the inevitable climax of his own reign of terror. The Entrepreneur of the Year award, the ultimate symbol of his cold, calculated success, was forever etched in a history not as an honor, but as the final, fragmented piece of evidence proving his ruinous hypocrisy. Lena Corvallis disappeared from the public eye shortly after the trial. A survivor forever marked by the blood she was forced to shed to finally break free from the cage her father had built. The case remains a stark reminder. When a life is built on absolute control and lies, the destruction, when it finally comes, is always catastrophic.